I honestly have to start this episode with the biggest sigh of my life. Um, I don't even know where to start. Okay, so first of all, I had to drop the first episode almost instantly due to the fact that I, I took a time away from TikTok because TikTok can sometimes be a little overstimulating. I don't know if everyone has the same experience, but it can become very overstimulating. And I don't do it for the sake of shutting down all the problems that there are in the world, but I do it for my own mental health. And I hope that a lot of people do in some sort of avenue, right? Mind you, not being avoidant to what's going on in this world. Um so before we even get into a little recap about what I started, what I talked about on my first episode, I kind of really want to just go over, who I am. Who am I? Because like I mentioned in the beginning of the first episode, I kind of just threw myself into the wildfire because I wanted to get everything that I had inside of me out. This is the first time that I am ever able to consciously produce a podcast like this. And I reflected a lot and I spoke to my mom about this a lot, about my first episode. And I listened to my episode over and over again, and I wanted to delete it, and I wanted to delete it, and I wanted to re-record it again. But I was like, no, every single word was meant to be said. And every single thing that I felt like I was wrong in had to be said because I had to learn from them myself. And so I did. It takes me literally one night, one review for me to realize where I did go wrong. Mind you, 90% of the things that I did say in that podcast, I meant from the bottom of my heart and are literally absolutely true. But 10% of it, I do want to clarify and clear the air on, right? So first thing that I really wanted to talk about is who am I? So a lot of people probably are like, all right, why would we even be listening to you in the first place? I am this human being that was born in San Juan, Puerto Rico. I was raised in the Bronx, New York. And so, with that background already, as if I, gradually moved my way to Massachusetts, I also have been all over the places like Miami, Los Angeles. I've been to Canada. I recently went on a trip to Norway, Switzerland, Portugal. Um, I've been everywhere. I have been literally absolutely everywhere. And there's still more places that I'd love to go and visit and have an experience with the way that I did with Norway. But not only am I well traveled, I'm also well informed. Now, I also do go to school. My major is cybersecurity, and I am diving into political science. But my independent study as a student is, the cosmics. And with all of that, it really came about me starting my own club at the university, at the college that I go to, called FOCA, which is Foundations of Cosmic Awareness. And with that, I have beautiful, beautiful people backing me up on that. I don't want to mention their names because I know that even how I started off with the podcast, you know, I have a clear understanding as where this podcast is going to lead me to and the people that are going to be commenting in my presence and my being and my opinions and my topics. But long story short, these people that are backing me up are highly, highly credible people. And, I have an awesome vice president. I have an awesome treasurer. I have an awesome secretary. And I am the president and founder of this club. And every single week was really curated with pure research and information that I have gathered and collected from places like I mentioned before in my first episode, which is the CIA. Literally, the CIA has everything that I've been speaking to you about. And not to even mention that on the first episode, I kind of talked about quantum and quantum mechanics, but I really didn't even mention about remote viewing, which the CIA has covered before, right? These are things that we really love to turn a blind eye to because we focus our, and not me, but, I'm generalizing this topic. As humans, we focus on things that are just fueled with negativity, right? A good 50% of us. And there is another 50% that really just wants love, peace, and unity. And, this is one of the things I did want to clear from the first episode. I came in strong. My first episode, I came in very, very strong. I don't even doubt that half of the people that are going to be listening to this, that listen to the first episode, are probably thinking of me in ways that they probably never thought of before, because I came out strong. And usually if you meet me in person, like if you really genuinely, I have these conversations in person, but I'm not usually delivering it to a crowd in the internet. You know what I mean? So when I have these conversations, they're very calm, they're very collected, they're very I know what's going on. The first episode, I feel like my energy came out strong because it was like a lot of hurt and a lot of trauma and a lot of emotional, buildup that I had in me that I just wanted to let go. I just wanted to tell the world, this is what's going on. Wake up, right? So now you are being able to see who I really am through this second episode moving forward, because now I'm a lot more collected. I got to learn all of my mistakes on that first episode. But I did want to mention that I did say something very, very disturbing on my end. I feel like a lot of people are going to support it and a lot of people are not. And for the people that are not going to support it and are going to talk shit about it, I do want to genuinely apologize, because I did literally demonize, the political party of Republicans and conservative, and a lot. And now the people that did support that claim are probably going to be like, why are you apologizing? Right? I'm apologizing not on behalf of myself, but on behalf of the people that did the Republican Party and the Conservative Party wrong. Because, the Conservative Party and the Republican Party have a very prestige lifestyle, and it really did come from colonization and the English era, and money and capitalism and all of those things that really kind of unite the Conservative Party, right, and the Republican Party. They have just a certain lifestyle that if no one else obeys by it, it's completely wrong, right? And the reason why I mentioned demonization towards that party is because of how actively in this current moment they are trying to dehumanize, people that are not obeying their lifestyle. That's the only reason why. And I do take it back. Why? Because not because they're not doing the things that I just mentioned, but I say it because this podcast is not a place for discrimination. This podcast is not a place to make people feel less than. Like I said, we are all equal. This podcast is to learn from each other and to be able to come together collectively and find a new way of being ourselves again and being human again, right? Where we can all unite together. And that's not going to work if we just keep pointing fingers at each other, right? One person thinks they're wrong, the other person thinks they're wrong, right? It's kind of how America was even built in the first place. That's how the Democratic parties and Republican parties were built in the first place, because they were able to come together and say, hey, we may have our differences, but one thing that we do have love for is the freedom that we have in this country. So let's protect it in any shape or form. And so, with that being said, I do apologize for, saying that Republicans and conservative people are demonized. I do not agree with the way that they handle humanity, but I don't completely feel like they're just demonized. They just have a certain way of seeing things, right? And, it kind of leads me to like, I find it so interesting that the Republican Party and conservatives are always pointing fingers at Democrats, liberals, and leftists, or whatever they want to call it, right? Because labels just divide us even more and more and more and more. At the end of the day, we're just human, right? We're in one planet. That's all we are. I find it really funny that they always point fingers at the left, Republicans. I apologize. Republicans always point fingers at the left, Democrats, etc. And I find it really funny because a lot of the things that they claim that, immigrants do, right? Or leftists do, or, Democrats do, or liberal people do illegally, Republicans do it. And conservative people do it, if not worse. How do you even think the conservative and Republican Party even came about? By a very hateful group of people coming together that have done horrible things. The only difference is that they do it with money, they do it in a very luxurious way, and they have really great lawyers to sweep all of that under the carpet. And so it's really funny because we talk about the Middle East, and we talk about, countries that are not so Americanly developed, or I don't know, capitalistically developed, or, just don't have this lifestyle that we have. I'm talking back into like small rural towns and like, let's say, third world countries, right? That don't have the ability to kind of like express themselves luxuriously, right? Because if you think about it, America is a third world country. We just have the accessibility to express ourselves luxuriously. What Republicans and conservatives don't like about those rural towns and places is that they say that they are, very violent and very like they do all of these kidnapping and raping and all of these things that are just really dehumanizing. They don't like that they do it, right? But it's not that they don't like that. They don't like that they do it. It's that they're not a certain skin color that fits to be able to do that. Does that make sense? I feel like if you're a certain skin color, if you have a certain amount of money, all of those things that they claim that is like literally like worth deporting you or locking you up and mistreating you and SAing you, that they're just not, it's just wrong. But they only claim that wrongdoing towards people of color, right? When we see immigrants and when we see the people that are being deported because they're in a gang or whatever the case is, from what I've seen in social media, 50% of these people have been literally people of color. And I'm like, all right, so where are the Polish people? Where are the German people? Where are all of these, white folks that literally live in America and are white passing, for example, Melania Trump, whatever her name is, the first lady of the United States of America, the current one, she's an immigrant and she's here with the Nobel Prize visa. I believe it's called the Albert Einstein visa for some reason. She's here for that. She's here with that. And I'm like, all right, but where did that come from? She doesn't have anything that really proves that she even qualifies for a Nobel Prize in that matter. And we're talking about before presidency, right? She's been here before the presidency. I could only imagine the connects they had to be able to, put her in such position, If someone like Jeffrey Epstein was even able to be in the hands of the Pope, I could only imagine how half of these people can even move and function in between each other, right? And So, these are all things that really just really blow my mind because, I see a lot of people of color too that are backing up the Republican Party and the Conservative Party. And by all means, like, we're in America, we all have the right to express our opinions, right? But make sure it fits your culture. You know what I'm trying to say? And if you think that dehumanizing other people because, they got here a certain way, or, they don't make enough money to be able to qualify into these spaces, I don't know. It's just like, it's just very, it's a very like WTF moment, because it's like, are we just all forgetting that we're all human and that we're literally on one planet, and that the only thing that's really dividing us is our consciousness? The only things that are really building up these borders are our consciousness. Because let's say I have a passport, right? I can literally drive to the other side of Canada, and all they do is literally check your ID like you're going to a club, and they're like, all right, welcome. It's like, what? Like, we literally created that for ourselves, right? And I feel like this is why the world is going chaotic, and this is why I'm sitting here doing this episode right now, actually, because um like I mentioned earlier in the beginning of this episode, I opened TikTok for the first time in a while, and I was very overstimulated because, first of all, AI has come to a point where I can't even tell whether this frogman species in Cancun, Mexico is real or not, right? Let's talk about that for a second, because that shit looked real. And let me tell you something, like, I'm a person who is very, very careful with what I research and what I actually go through. I always I have a very, 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 very clear mind, right? But this whole frogman situation is the only thing out of everything that I've, read and done and researched that really got me like, what the fuck? Like, is this real, or is this like AI, right? And I'm like, damn, if AI is getting that advanced as to visuals, I feel like visually that's crazy, right? But and with that being said, there's a lot of people in the comment section saying like, oh, like, this is what they are pushing AI for. So if we do see a video that is a actual UFO, or we do see, let's say, a video of a different species, right? That pretty much we won't even be able to believe it anymore, because we won't even know if it's AI or not. Which, another thing that I did want to clarify about the first episode is that, I don't know if you remember, but I did mention how these UFOs do travel in a space and time bubble that they kind of create on their own. And this was told and concluded by, government officials and military officials and higher intelligence, like national intelligence officials. The reason I forgot to also mention is that the reason why the UFO videos and pictures that they take usually don't look like 4K quality is because that bubble is what distorts the quality of the image or the video footage that is being taken of the UFO and the UAP. So we can have an 8K camera and it still will not be able to really capture what that craft looks like, because it's within that space and time distortion within our eyes, because like I said, they're cruising in there, they're chilling. So I don't know, I just find that really funny. I mean, I'm not funny. I find it really interesting. What I find funny is how I really spent like almost 20 minutes like, wait, is this frogman situation real or not? Couldn't come to a conclusion for that. But let's get into the real topic, because I try to keep my episodes at least like less than 30 minutes, and we only got like 10 minutes left. But with all of that being said, WTF is going on? That's literally my last my bullet point that I have on my notes here. What is going on? It is so devastating. Like, to grow up as a 26-year-old, to grow up and see how humans treat each other in such a beautiful world, right? And if we really just want to go back to religion, regardless of how people think, regardless of how people are, how is it that in a world so beautiful that God created, we treat each other and the planet like this, right? And we think about running a Christian country, but a lot of these people that are, like major pro-Israel, pro-capitalism, these are the people that are ready to drill the planet, literally blow pollution into our airs and cut all of our trees for highways and infrastructures and houses and neighborhoods, but they don't believe in taking care of the planet that God created, taking care of their own humans that God created. So there's a lot of hypocrisy. And to use the Lord, when I grew up as a Catholic, is that to use the Lord's name in vain is a no-go. And it's something that I always see Republican people do, that I always see, at least. And let's not talk about just Republicans, right? Because we also know that there hasn't been no Democrat that has been able to really give people a good image or give the Democrat Party a good image, especially when we're talking about presidents, right? In my eyes, in my perspective, Joe Biden didn't do much. Bill Clinton is a PDF file. And Donald Trump too. So it's just like, whatever side of the aisle, there's a lot of corruption going on. And another thing that I see on TikTok is people generally defending like the entire Epstein situation. They're like, yeah, he wouldn't do that. He wouldn't do that. That's AI. That's AI. Oh my gosh. If the defense, what's it called? The Department of Justice comes out with these files and Trump's name is in it, Bill Clinton's name is in it, that's it. The fact that these names are in these files, that should be enough. And how is that not enough? That, like, my question is, how is that not enough? And it really just goes to show that, like, we're literally a thin, we're literally like holding on by a string from our democracy really, really going corrupt. And like I said, I instantly dropped my first episode on right before New Year's Eve because, I feel like I needed people to be aware, at least the people that are watching me, my close people, to be aware of what I know so we can go into this new year with a fresh and educated and, cosmically open heart and find solutions together, right? This episode going into this new year, I really just want us to be able to come together and, say, hey, we're humans. Like, one political party is wrong, the other one is wrong too. People are doing nasty things. It's that in rural areas that, Republicans or conservative people don't believe in. If it's people that have a lot of money, like disgusting, filthy money that literally narrows down to the point to the things that they do, that they literally hide under their, rugs. there's just wrongdoing in every angle that you can think of. And so, yeah, you know what? It's funny because this episode initially started because I really wanted to talk about consciousness, but I think I'm going to leave it for that next episode. But I think this episode, I really wanted to focus on how divided humanity really is right now, and what are the avenues that we need to rescue ourselves from. And it's, we just need to protect each other, because either horrible things are going to happen to us, the civilians, or just horrible things are going to happen to our country overall. And there's some evil people that don't care if you get killed, if you get arrested, if you get deported, if you're starving, because it's not going to come out of their pockets. They don't want no American taxpayer feeding the people who are disabled to work, who aren't mentally there to work, or who are lazy, or who are starving, right? They don't want that. So, we just have a lot of people that are not for humanity, right? They're for a capitalistic world, right? And so, with that being said, as we're approaching the 30-minute mark, don't drift away from the world, right? Because I don't do that. I don't do that at all. I'm constantly in school. I'm constantly making sure I got good grades so I can, get this degree and get myself in the White House and get myself into Congress and get myself into, protecting our security systems cyberly, right? And seeing what's out there in the world at the same time. And I'm also, delivering these messages to you guys so we can all be consciously aware of the psychological warfare that we're going through right now. And always have been going through. So, these are things that I just I say it kindly because there's just a lot of evil out there, and I want all of us to be aware of it and just take care of each other and build our communities where, our lives is not in danger, as to the proximity of ourselves, right? And as to what's going on in different countries, there's always ways to be able to be there. And this is what Becoming One is for, to find these solutions, to talk about these solutions. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching this episode, or listening to this episode if you're listening to it. I cannot wait to see where this journey takes us, and I really hope that we all have the heart and the purity still in us to become one and rescue the rest of the world from the evil that is literally eating people's brains up. I love you guys so much, and please be safe out there. Peace.